Hello, all, and welcome to the Making a Management Show. This week, we are diving into culture, company culture, store culture, team culture, all the cultures. Um, First, last night, we tried to go live. We had some technical difficulties. It wasn't an April Fool's joke. I do apologize, but here we are on a Friday night, which, hey, Fridays are Fridays are great. Um, you know, Sometimes, crap happens and we have to adjust. And as business owners or managers and leaders, things don't go as always as planned. And, we make an adjustment and we go again. And so here we are. um, and again, I want to thank everyone who watched the first two shows and have subscribed to the channel. It really means so much, and really having a lot of fun doing these. And I think you know last week was fantastic. We got into communication, so make sure you check out that video. And really enjoyed the live questions that came in. So hopefully we have a couple people that will tune in tonight and bring in some live questions so we can have that dialogue. Because again, it's a two-way street. Yes, I'm going to offer my insights, but I think I can learn from you guys, just like I hope that you will take some different perspective or learn from me as well. So really really excited about it, and kind of where the show is heading. So I think the reason why we're diving into culture this week, and for me, it's just very simple, is because this week on Wednesday, the brand that I am a part of, it was pretty much the Super Bowl for us. It was our National Day of Giving. And if you kind of know what I'm talking about, then you know the brand I'm a part of. So I'm going to kind of reference a little bit of that and that history. Um, but essentially, what we do is we donate 100% of our sales in every store across the nation to local charities. And it is just such an incredible um, feeling, and to be able to make sub sandwiches and to make a difference in the lives of the communities that we serve, just incredible. I mean, the days leading up to it and the day of are exciting but exhausting. All the teams come out and where everyone's pumped about it, um, and it's just a day that I don't even have words because it's just so incredible of what we do. And um, but honestly, that is the our brand's culture, and that's just kind of ingrained in it. And as a franchise owner, it's something that it's almost like a prerequisite, where you have to buy into that. Um, and if you don't, then maybe that this particular brand isn't for you. So um, I could talk about that dynamic in our brand's culture for hours and hours, but I'm just going to try to give you a little snippet or a little sneak preview, not sneak preview, but a little preview of it. um, so the founder and CEO of the brand, Peter Cancro, he founded the company on this premise, and it was making a sub sandwich and making a difference can be one and the same. And that culture, started way back when in New Jersey, and I think kind of modeled off of Hoffman's ice cream as well, Bob Hoffman, I believe. And but really that sense of giving back to the community in any way that Peter could. And I think that when it came time to expand and start the franchising journey, that needed to be, it was just part of who Peter is. And I think that is where the culture came from. um and I think that as he brought in franchisees and expanded across the nation, um, Peter really made sure that that particular culture was absolutely at the forefront, and being bought in by every person coming into the brand. People working at the corporate office and their franchisees, et cetera, et cetera. So I honestly, I'm so grateful for Peter's vision and his dedication to the culture, because I think it really trickles down to every single person in the organization. Um, so I think, in what does that mean for you? What does the culture, like, in your organization or your team? What does that mean for you? Pardon me. I think I'm fighting some allergies as the seasons turn here. Um, I think, first and foremost, I think that, um, as a leader or a manager, I think you need to look at yourself and and really analyze, what is the culture of my business, or what is the culture of my team. Um, because whether or not you've put very specific and very thoughtful, the kind of thoughtfulness into that. Um, every organization and every business or team has a culture. For example, you might hear "work hard, play hard," or the culture of giving back, or there's a lot of different catchphrases. You know, a culture based on accountability or integrity, and a lot of those things that you would think are integral, or just kind of um, very important to every organization or team. So I think, for step one, it's looking at your team, looking at your organization or business, and saying, "Yep, what does it look like?" You know, it, and honestly, do you like what it is? um, and hopefully that answer is yes. But at the same time, um, you know, going about, when you kind of analyze it, is there something about it that you don't like, or does the culture get lost from the founder, or the boss, down to the hourly employees? And I think, if it does, why does it get lost? And I think that's something that, um, as a leader or a manager, that you need to be able to address. So Um, kind of look at my notes here. So, self-assessment, what you want it to be, and then you know, once you kind of go through that, and you say, okay, this is what my current culture is, and then you say, all right, what do I want my culture to be? And I think that comes down to the individual. And if you're part of a bigger brand, if you're a franchisee, I think every brand has a culture. um, and most of the time you kind of adopt that same culture. But what I would say is, within the brand, or a bigger organization, for example, if it's not a franchise type deal, is, what is your team culture? And what are your team members doing that kind of drives home that point? And I say that because I believe that your customers, whether it's someone ordering a sub sandwich in my case, or maybe it's a B2B situation. um I think your customers need to feel your culture, you know in your interactions. And what does that look like? And you know in our world, it's that genuineness, it's the smile behind the counter, it's giving to give, not giving to get, in kind of our situation. But I think that your team, or your customers, pardon me, need to feel what that culture is, through the case of um kind of in each interaction, whether that is um, selling things, or just day-to-day conversations. And yeah, I think when you do that, or when you think about that, it's how do you as the leader get your to implement how do you implement that culture downwards and kind of trickle down to your team members? And I like to compare culture to a seed. And I think that seed needs to be planted, and then I think it needs to be nourished. It needs to be, with water and sunlight and everything that you need that seed to grow, to grow up, and then also to grow roots. And I think that's my favorite analogy about culture is, if you plant the seed, and then you plant that seed with your team or your business, and then you take the time and be very deliberate in your actions and in your words and your interactions with your team members. And that is what the nourishing side of it is. And and then you can allow that culture to grow. And it's going to kind of be interwoven into all of the things that you're doing, whether, again, it's, training, developing, team members. It's, new uh hiring new people, and kind of setting that standard and kind of planting that seed right from the beginning. So, okay, this is our culture. This is what we do here at this store or in this team. And I think the more that you can, as the leader, quote, nourish what you want that culture to be, then as it grows and kind of takes on its own identity, um, you're going to find a really good culture, a good strong culture with a good leader up on top, that people are going to, your team members, especially like your A team members and maybe your B team members, they're going to also be an extended branch of what that culture is. And they will be able to hold, new people and new hires or others on the team accountable for what that culture looks like. And I think really, and when it gets to that point, then you are in a great position of, developing your culture for longevity. And um and that will allow your business to grow, in my opinion, or allow your team to grow, or to reach the goals or exceed the goals that maybe you set for the year. So um that's for me, that's what my goal is when I'm in the store, or in my business, is have a culture and work at it every single day. And it's figuring out, um, if there are any loose, are there any people that kind of aren't getting on board with it, and or people that are very almost, pulling in the opposite direction of you. And if that's the case, I like to refer to the business book Good to Great by Jim Collins. And he talks about, you get the right people on the bus, and you get the wrong people off the bus. And in when you're trying to implement a culture within your team and your organization, if you have the wrong people on the bus that are going to fight you in different aspects, or you know and they might be nice people, but they are just not, with your idea and your direction. If that is the case, then maybe those people aren't the right fit for your team. And that kind of goes back to, our last week conversation of, um, just having that honest conversation, not necessarily a hard conversation. Again, flipping that idea of, it's not necessarily difficult or hard or terrible conversation to have, but more of just an honest conversation. um you know and during that honest conversation, you just say, like, hey, this is the direction of our team, this is the culture of the team. And um you may not really be being an example of that culture and that's a problem. And how can we help you get to that point, or can we help you get to that point? Some people are stubborn. um, but what I would say is, if you go into, let's say you watch this week, and you go into your team and say, all right, guys, what's our culture? And or this is a culture. This is what we're going to do. And you kind of lay it out for them, and then you notice that it's not really taking. Your team members aren't really getting behind it. Um, there's pushback, or things like that. What I would say is, um, it's really really important to um, it's important to be persistent as a leader, and you have to be persistent uh, while you're trying to implement this culture. And also, obviously, you need to be the example of it, because if you're not, then why is anyone gonna they're gonna watch you first, as watch the manager, watch the leader. And if you don't aren't you know walking the walk type deal, or talking the talk, then um, they're just not going to follow. We got a live question from Raven. Thank you so much. Let's see. She says, "How do you bring back a positive culture after it being negative?" Um, that's a great question, Raven. Thank you so much. Um, one more time, I'm gonna read it out loud just in case anyone missed it. So Raven says, "How do you bring back a positive culture after it being negative?" Well, I think it depends on who. Are you the employee in this instance, or are you the manager, or the leader, or the business owner? Because I think for each one of those aspects, or each like, as an employee, that's one route, or as a manager or leader, that's another route, and then business owner, it's a different route. So let's start as the employee. um, I think if you're an employee and you're kind of feeling like the culture of your team or your business or organization is kind of a negative one, um, I think first and foremost is, you know looking at yourself and saying, okay, even though that I'm disagree with what the culture is at this moment, I would say that you still have bearing, and you still have control over your own emotions, and your own like how you're feeling about the day, and how you go about working with your customers, or your clients, or patients. So you know you can be an example of a brighter, better culture within yourself. So that's number one. Number two is, speaking to the person right above you. Whether, so if you're an employee, I guess the manager or assistant manager, or if you're a manager, then district manager, and then so on and so forth, up to the owner. And just say, hey, like, what's going on with our culture? Why are we doing what we're doing, and why does it feel the way that, coming to work, why does it feel this way? Um, and if you are, you're trying to have that conversation with the person up above you, that's obviously a scary thing, maybe. But you're if it's a job that you love, and it's an organization that you do love, but somehow, some way, throughout the course of time, the culture went from great to poor. Um, I think you're doing everyone a solid, doing them a service, by having that maybe slightly uncomfortable conversation with the person directly above you. And hopefully, you guys have a trustworthy, a relationship based on trust, where you can have that open communication with them. However, I do understand that there are situations where that is not a thing. Um, so I think, again, moving it up the chain a little bit. And then, if you maybe you're an owner, or business owner, and you're kind of hearing that your culture is poor from uh, or it has gone downhill from a employee or mid-level management type person. If that's the case, honestly, it's time to look in the mirror. And a- it, I think as a leader and as a manager in any capacity, it's being able to take responsibility and realizing that the buck kind of stops with you, period. And I for me personally, I really dislike when managers or leaders blame shift. And that's all the way from, a shift leader type person that, has some responsibility, but not a ton, up to a district manager or a franchisee. If you can't take that responsibility on your own shoulders, then that's a problem. And so you take a really hard look at yourself in the mirror and say, okay, where did I go wrong in the culture? Did I employ someone that didn't share in my vision or share in the culture of the brand or the store? And then did that person then just kind of eventually, just like you have to nourish good culture, did that person just slowly chip away and wreck that culture? I think that's something to look at. um, you have to look at yourself and say, all right, well, was I doing enough? Was I hands on enough to, um, really have a positive impact on the culture or to continue the culture that I wanted? Did you withdraw too much? That's possible. So I think there's a lot of different, really tough introspective questions, which is what I was saying earlier that you need to do and you need to have as the leader of the organization in terms of culture. Um, and another thing to maybe think about is if you are at that top level and maybe you talk to someone that you really trust, maybe a mentor. Going to be I'm a big advocate of mentors and someone that you trust that will give you critical, honest feedback. Um, and maybe you talk to them about that because sometimes when you're in it every day, you can get blinded and you don't necessarily see everything that you need to see. Um, you know, so if that is the case, maybe your mentor can shine light um, on the situation and offer a different perspective, and which is kind of why we're having this show here. And the whole goal of the show is just to maybe offer everyone who watches at different levels of management or leadership a different perspective that they can, kind of go into their organizations, teams, businesses, and talk about it. And maybe with just a slightly different knowledge or a little bit more knowledge. So that was a long-winded answer. Pardon me. But I think really it kind of comes down to the top, and trickling down and nourishing what that seed of culture. Um, all right, so we kind of talked about real quick. We talked about team members buying in to um, what the culture is, um, and I think it's important to be patient with your team members and to realize that especially if it's a new business or if it is an existing business that you're trying to alter that culture a little bit, um, or flipping it upside down and really just driving home something completely new. And if that is the case, you need to have a very solid level of patience. And I think um, it's because it takes time for people to adopt change and especially systemic change, and a culture based change that takes time. Um, but maybe it's a you kind of have a meeting with everyone in a large setting, a group setting. Um, but then it's also talking to your key players on your team and making sure that they're bought in because again, some of the maybe hourly employees, they're going to have a harder time buying in. But if that mid-level team member, so your A team members, maybe call them an assistant manager in this scenario, um, you need to make sure that they're bought in, and because they can be that intermediary link between you and like the hourly guys. Um, However, just you can't necessarily only rely on them to be the link. You as the leader, the manager or the owner or whatever needs to to speak into um to everyone on the team, top to bottom, and really drive home that culture. So um that's how I would kind of recommend, getting team members to buy in. And again, if they're just adamantly against it, then maybe they're just not the right team members for you guys. Give it you gotta give chances. You gotta give the ability for people to change and adapt. Um, but they're going not rowing in the same direction. It might not be the good fit. Um, oh man, I feel like I covered a lot. In 20 just over 25 minutes. So it's when I would ask if anyone has any more questions, or if you're not watching live, that's totally okay. I do check the comments, every day. So if you watch it and you have a question, feel free to leave it in the comment section, and I can get back to it there. Also, we just got the just started up the Instagram page, so um, it's the at the Making Management Show. So check us out on there. Try to be posting some things throughout the week that might get you thinking, or uh, just another avenue for us to build a community, because ultimately this is what it's all about. And if you haven't, please, smash a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and as always, going to end with the quote of the day. And the quote of the day today is by Gary Vaynerchuk, who is, I've been following him for a very long time, entrepreneur. But his quote is, company culture is the backbone of any successful organization. And um, I adamantly believe that, and I think it's just super important that that culture needs to shine through, from top to bottom. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys, and we're going to try to be back on Thursday this coming week, and hope you guys have a great weekend.